Good morning, signature. We made it.
I know nothing worse than getting ready to go live and hearing the computer saying, having network difficulties, please stand by.
Hey, we still made it through and we're here for another great sales meeting. We've got a great potpourri panel. Like Amy says I say it wrong, but I don't care.
How do you say it?
Potpourri.
You're afraid to say pot. It's
Yeah, that's
potpourri.
It's Pope.
Pope, like
We're
as in
feisty
the
this
Pope?
morning, folks.
Serious? That's potpourri?
It's Pope.
Okay,
Silent.
so moving past that bus, we have a lot of great information to share
Chris
with
must
you.
have a long list.
I do, I have a huge list. But we're going to start off with Shelley. Shelley, tell us about what's going on in the mortgage market.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. So I want to share some great news. We've actually got non-QM loans making a comeback. As you all know, going into COVID or into the pandemic.
Pick me.
Yep.
What's QM?
Non-qualified mortgages.
Okay, non-qualified.
So you're non-traditional.
Thank God he asked.
Thank you so much.
I didn't want everyone thinking, what's QM? And they wouldn't hear what you said.
Got it. Non-qualified mortgages. So heading into the pandemic and our shutdown, as you know, a lot of the non-qualified mortgage lenders actually put a pause. A lot of them actually shut down. So we are bringing back an investor who is internal, meaning that we can underwrite these loans. And some of the highlights for this non-QM investor is going to be our jumbo loans at 85%. We do have one investor that'll do 10% down, but it is a super high 740, 18 months reserve. In this particular case, it's an 85% no MI. I priced a loan out today. It was actually at 3.5% on a 30-year fix. No mortgage
Jumbo.
insurance.
Yeah.
Jumbo. Yes.
But you need 18 months reserves. If
No,
you add
that was
that,
the
you
other
got
one.
down
No,
payment.
that's the other one.
Yeah.
This one you just need 15% down.
Oh, okay.
Another great loan is a 12-month bank statement. So that is for your stated or your self-employed borrowers, much like our realtors here on the table. Your business owners, that is at a 20% down payment. And then we have our debt service ratio, which is ultimately for an investor who's looking to purchase. All that we're looking at is going to be what the property can actually produce as far as a rental. We use that as income towards that property. And so if you have any questions about these non-QM programs, please reach out to one of your Prosperity Lending loan officers. Yes, Chris?
When you say you're going to use the income, so let's say I have a property and my payment's $1,500, my rent's $1,600, so the $100 I make, you're going to qualify as income, but do you get rid of the other money that I'm already paying for in the rent?
We won't look at any of the other debts or anything else. All we're looking at is what the mortgage payment is compared to what you can actually collect on the rent. So obviously we want it to be higher.
Yes, me too.
So that
I'm asking for a friend, okay?
Yeah.
So in other words, if it cash flows.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Is that like a 10% down or what's
No,
the-
that is actually going to be closer to like 25 to 30% for that program. But
So
no
it's
questions
cash
asked,
flow.
right? So it is truly
At
just
20% down, about
It
anything
probably,
should
yeah,
cash
cash
flow.
flows, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a
Yeah.
great product. Does that go over the loan, like I'm only allowed to have so many loans, but if I do a bank statement loan, that number doesn't apply anymore?
Yeah, so traditional
See, that's what you
conforming
do.
loans are 10 properties financed, so
Yeah.
this will allow you to go over that number. One thing that I thought was interesting also with that is you can have an investor do a cash out at 65%, only looking at the rental on that property today for the cash out refinance. So if you have investors who are looking to capitalize on, maybe buying additional investment properties, this would be a great opportunity and program to take advantage of. So it's our non-qualified mortgage program that is making a comeback. Again, reach out to one of your lender or Prosperity Lending loan officers to go through that. The other thing I want to bring up is rates. So we are up and down on interest rates, and one thing that I want to make sure we're all prepared for is if rates happen to go up, and we've qualified our borrowers today at a much lower interest rate, even 0.25% could jeopardize a loan approval. So just be very cognizant of that as you're working with your clients. I know for our team, we are preparing for even a quarter shift in movement in rates. And so making sure that as you're out there shopping with your clients, if you're working with other lenders, just make sure that they understand that this rate, you want to get them pre-qualified for at least a 0.25% higher in the event the market shifts as it did in the last couple of weeks. We were came into the year an eighth lower, went into the second week a quarter higher, and we're landing about an eighth lower, just to have that flexibility.
So those programs, like when the pandemic started, we were on a sales meeting and a lot of those programs went away because the financing market was scared of what was going to happen. And so now all of these things are coming back.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll continue?
I hope it will continue. I definitely feel like the market's hot, we're on fire, and so.
It's a running joke with Tom.
I do feel there's a lot, I mean, obviously, we've had a great run for the last, at 2020. Going into it, I think a lot of us, all of us, we're a little nervous about that,
Sure.
investors as well. So yeah, I believe we're going to see more investors come back and do a little bit more aggressive in rates and also in programs.
Well,
Do you think they're gonna be aggressive in the sense that they need to do a lot of loans this year to make up for their losses last year? Will they be
I don't know
more
that we
aggressive
have
because of that?
I don't know that we had a lot of losses because,
Shelley didn't have any, but some of those others.
Well, all the investors that pulled out of the market that weren't doing
Oh, for the
loans,
non-QM, yes.
Yeah, they need to make up that.
Yeah.
They need to make some money.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, they've got reports that they've got to fill numbers in on, and so.
Sure. I mean, I do think that there's, that
They're just
part
gonna
of
fill it
it,
in.
it would be doing these same types of loans. They're not anything different than what they had out before. They're just coming back into the market now with a little bit more belief that we're gonna be okay.
That's great. That's awesome. And I got to say thank you because I called you on Friday at 5 o'clock, which I swear I never do to anybody, and you answered.
Oh.
She didn't talk to me for very long, but she answered the phone when I called. I liked it. So we got a lot of cool things coming up this week at Signature. Tom,
Yeah.
you've been talking about a class that you have, and I've said you always had class. It's today. Tell us about your
Yeah,
class.
today, 11 o'clock, we're gonna have how to make $300,000 in about an hour a day.
Hour a day.
Now,
That's like my diet.
Some people are calling Boulder Dash, and you might be right, you might be wrong, I don't know, but we'll see what the rest of the statement is after about 1 hour a day. So, but it's about lead generation, and if you're not doing lead generation right now, when there is no fuel for the fire, you can't catch on fire. So lead gen, lead gen, lead gen.
Yeah.
You like the way I tied that over?
Yeah.
So is this-
I'm not sure it
So
works,
is this
but
an
okay.
in-live class here?
In live class, and for those that did not know about it or just hearing about it during the sales meeting, it will be on YouTube. As much as I did not want to see it live streamed, because I have a tendency to go off and say some things that may not be the most politically correct stuff in the world, and not be able to give you the real insights of what my thought process is on some stuff. I'm gonna have to keep it somewhat professional.
I thought we had a
Keep it
3-second
classy, Tom.
delay.
That might be the best part of the whole
Cut you
class,
out.
is watching Tom keep it classy.
Yes.
If I can, right?
Struggling.
I will be. There'll be some definite pauses, but that's because
okay.
I'm trying.
I'm going for sure. It's at the Southwest office if you want to come and join us for that.
Lunch is provided.
Lunch is provided, but if not, check us out online. Janet, you're going to be teaching the RPA in your Summerlin office on Thursday at 1 p.m.
I am. It's going to be live. We're not going to be broadcast. I also teach the RPA class for post-licensing, and it's the only 4-hour class, and believe it or not, I can stretch the RPA to 4 hours, but it won't be for 4 hours. You're gonna miss all the
It
fun.
does have 10 pages.
You're gonna miss all the fun stories that go along with it in post-licensing. But if you need a refresher, if you've been hiding from COVID and haven't written an offer for a while, come check us out, 1 o'clock Friday.
And if Thursday, 1 o'clock Thursday. And if that's not enough, we have another great class. Todd is doing a buyer presentation, like a buyer consultation class.
Consultation, yes.
Consultation.
Please don't call it a presentation.
And it's Friday at 11 here in the Southwest office to be central for everyone to attend.
Yeah,
Tell us
so
about
it'll
your
be
thoughts.
here, it'll also be a live class like Tom's having today. You can come in, participate, ask questions. You can also ask questions online, of course. So we'll be streaming it, my understanding is on YouTube as well. So yeah, 11 o'clock Friday. It will be me actually doing a buyer consult. Like you're gonna see exactly what it looks like when you go into a conference room, when you close the door with somebody on the other side of the
Lock it.
table and trying to understand and help them with the concept of buying a home. It'll be a beginning to end. The girls at my office were giving me a hard time yesterday because I kept saying it will be live, like it's going to be me acting on stage, and it really kind of is. Like you're going to get to see like what that looks like, what that feels like, what are some of the words people use, and I just think there's a lot of agents that hear about buyer consults or presentations, and they really just don't know what that is.
Sure.
And I think if you knew how powerful a buyer consultation was, you would use one every single time, and it would keep you out of a lot of trouble. So-
And let me add to that, if you've been living under a rock and haven't heard about the DOJ thing with NAR and how things are gonna be changing, this buyer consult is gonna be what you're gonna have to do with buyers, because you're gonna need to have to divulge information to them prior to even going out and looking at property. So just like we have listing presentations, we now are gonna have to have buyer consults. It's gonna be pretty much mandatory, in my opinion, in how this whole thing's gonna go, so that the buyer does know what is gonna be happening during the transaction, and they need to.
Yeah, so the good news is, in my consult, we always divulge who gets paid what and where, and like this whole DOJ thing for me is not because we've already done that. We've
Sure.
been doing that for years. Like, I want everyone to know who's getting paid what and how that goes, and you're gonna get to see it live, that's all.
I think the best thing is a lot of people react to a buyer. Buyer wants to come and meet with me, they just throw down their schedule, it doesn't matter what's gonna happen, I'll run out and do whatever. But you actually set a condition that the buyer must do these things, and you present it to them, and you make a business decision whether to work with them. I think that's huge.
Yep. Yeah, so I'll demonstrate exactly how I, as the agent, make a business decision whether I want to work with them, and I think they make the same decision whether they want to work
Yep.
with me. And we'll go through that conversation and.
Aaron Patrick
see how I do
said that buyer consults are mandatory with her team, which I think is a great process to institute, because that way, at least you know that at the end of the day, the buyer you're going to kill yourself over is going to pay you and not go to an open house and buy a home without you, because that's the worst thing that could happen in our business.
I think that's happened to you before.
Yeah, once. And it's always friends and family. Always friends and family, and that taught me never to do it again. But thanks for bringing that up, Todd. Really appreciate
No
that. So we've got a lot of things to go over on my list, but before we do that, Tom, you talked about something I think is really cool, and it's something that I've really not liked about our MLS. Talk about teams.
Yeah, look, it's been an issue with teams. If you have a team leader, all their listings that all the team members go under, all the sales go under the team leader's name and number, and you don't get to track your own production. That was brought up to the MLS board. MLS board last year put together a format for the MLS to fill out to where you have your team leader. The team will have a new public ID. You got to fill out some paperwork and get it to the MLS. They'll provide you with a new public ID that will have all of your team members
It's really cool.
underneath that, and so that we'll be able to track the team members' production as well as the total team's production, and it also will come up across Zillow and across the other third-party websites, portals that are out there. So, it's important because it gives the team itself a name recognition.
Yep.
And also it gives name recognition for the team member himself.
So Tom's got some forms that you can't see like this, but you have to fill out your team member to get your team public ID.
Yep.
And what I think is cool, I always thought that it had to go in the team owner's name, so whoever that was. And a lot of times we have co-team owners, and so this allows them all together to work under one team name, whatever that team name is assembled to be.
Yeah.
Assembled.
So it doesn't have to be last names or whatever of the.
Well,
Well, it
it's
has
not
to be
follow the
conforming with
MLS.
that, yeah. But if it was like Shelley and Chris, right, team, we could then get a public ID and actually be able to put all the people on the team under that public ID, even though it's in their name, and it still counts as team production.
Yeah.
So you get to have that feeling of that's my listing, and the team gets to get the production together. But you got to fill out paperwork like any good LPS.
Yeah, and the paperwork, if you need it, is you can either send me an email at tom@signaturend.com, or you go on the LVR website under the MLS department and look for teams. There's all the paperwork there.
And V just reminded everybody that for team leaders out there that are listening, we're going to be having a team leader meeting where we'll go over this in detail.
Yeah.
So thanks for reminding us
So
of that.
if they're agents at Signature and they have a team, they should be attending this meeting, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
We're gonna talk
Meaning
about-
that you have a team agreement with Signature that you can be a team.
Right.
We want to make sure that those are correct because we need that in writing. And if you're on a team, make sure that you have a team agreement with your team leader. So definitely want to do that. Got a couple of topics to throw out to you guys. So the first one, Todd, you brought this up, and it's one that I'm struggling with right now before the meeting. Close of escrow, and the other agent wants to hold up closing so that the repairs that they've already agreed to can be completed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So what do you do? Tom, what do you do?
Let's discuss.
So here's the question. So the repairs on the property are not completed.
Yes.
Right.
Or they're not completed at a level that the buyer agrees with. and close of escrow is today or tomorrow, and the agent, typically on the buy side, suggests that we just don't close escrow without an addendum to extend escrow because the seller has now breached the contract because they haven't done the repairs.
Yeah.
So tell me what your thoughts are about
So we're making an assumption though, and I just want to clear it up, that they've already signed an inspection repair request agreement, right, that says
a repair request.
the seller is going to agree in writing that all of these items are going to be done, and that's already executed.
Yes, that was
Okay.
done 20 days ago.
Yep. So contractually, the seller's already agreed to make all the repairs no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why would you hold up close of escrow?
It depends. Well, are you talking about the seller? As a seller's agent?
No, he's talking, I think from the buyer's point of view. Why would a buyer hold it
Point of
up?
view, why would, I mean, if you get down to the last day and the repairs are not complete, can the buyer not close escrow?
So the buyer can always not close up to the close date and risk the liability he could incur onto himself. But I think the point that you said that was interesting is, can the buyer's agent not close escrow? And the point is, the buyer's agent is the one usually causing the problem because they're interjecting themselves in front of the transaction, and they've already contractually agreed. So like you said, it's just phonetics of us making sure they get done. It doesn't mean they cannot do them later. And during the walkthrough, we can always do a holdback. And I think most people forget that.
Yep.
Right? You've done those.
Yeah, the holdback is no longer in the final walkthrough like it used to be.
There's a special new agreement
But there's
for that.
a way to do that.
Yep.
But what's important to understand as a buyer's agent who starts spouting off that we'll just hold up escrow and we're not going to close and this and they get super defensive. Let's be clear, the repair request that both parties have signed, that the seller has agreed to do these repairs and the buyer's okay with that to move the transaction forward, is not part of the RPA. It does not change the RPA. So if your residential purchase agreement says close of escrow date is this date, you cannot use that as a reason not to close.
Yep.
Now, it is contractual, both
Yeah.
parties have agreed, and because it's contractual, you can take action against it. You could go to small claims court. There's lots of things you could do, but holding up the close of escrow without putting your buyer's earnest money in jeopardy is not one of them. Okay, so understand, repair request and RPA are two separate documents. The repair request is there so that it's a tool, so that both parties can come to an agreement on the repairs that need to be done. But it does not alter in any way the residential purchase agreement. Notice it doesn't say addendum on it anywhere. And by the way, what's the only way that we alter a contract?
By an addendum.
There's only one way, it's by an addendum. So it doesn't say addendum because it's not an addendum. Shelley, if you got an addendum that said the buyer or the seller will pay $1,000 for the buyer in lieu of repairs, what are you going to do with that addendum?
I'm going to credit them $1,000.
And are you going to allow it to say repairs on it?
I don't want it to say repairs on there.
Nobody wants it to say repairs,
Yes.
right? Because nobody wants to lend money against a house
that needs
that's in
work.
disrepair.
Yeah.
So there's it's a little funny there, but please don't put your buyer in a situation where their earnest money is now in jeopardy because the close of escrow was Friday and you went and did your walkthrough on Thursday and it wasn't to their agreement and you didn't close because technically
You're out of contract.
you're out of contract.
And your docs may not be good any longer, right? Because docs are only good for so long that have been signed. And if you delay a closing when all parties are ready to close and you stop it, that deal could not close.
Yeah, it could be dead.
It could be dead completely over what, $300 worth of repairs?
Or what, even if it's $1,000 worth of repairs.
Because
Doesn't
It's
matter.
not a reason to hold up a close of escrow.
How about this one? I'm not going to allow it to close because I don't have the walkthrough yet. We had that happen twice this week, that the agent actually stopped the closing, told their buyer don't close, or the seller don't close, because we don't have a walkthrough signed yet.
told the seller that the
Yeah.
walkthrough wasn't.
Yeah.
So what?
Seller didn't care.
The whole point is, why would you stop the transaction for it? I would put in a notice in writing saying, hey, contract said you were gonna do a walkthrough 3 days before close of escrow. You haven't done it, please do the walkthrough. And if they say, no, we're not gonna do one, that's on the buyer to do, but at least you have that email in your file showing that everyone was going to do what they were supposed to do contractually.
Well, that's always kind of the best part for me is agents, they try to be, I don't know, shadies might be a bad word, but they try not to do things that they should do. Like, hey, you haven't done your walkthrough. Like, it's not my responsibility. Everyone always asks me, whose responsibility is it to open escrow?
Everyone.
I don't know. Whoever gets to it first, maybe?
Whoever
Like,
wants to get it.
whoever has it in.
The lender.
For me,
The lender.
on my team, it's
We're not even gonna tell you for 2 weeks.
It's my team's job to open up escrow every time. I don't care what side of the transaction we represent. We send an open escrow email, even if there's already been one sent.
Yep.
Because we're a part of this transaction and we're trying to move it forward. We're not trying to slow it down. So,
So
please.
on a lending side, we've been asked sometimes to hold our funding because of these exact reasons.
That's a good idea.
So you're, you're saying, go forward, get it done, and just not
Well,
really worry about.
I mean, let's be just, so this actually happened, by the way. So last Friday, a buyer was supposed to close. Our agents said, don't close because the repairs aren't done right. And we'll deal with it on Tuesday. And they're out of contract. And what if, just what if, this is a bad scenario, but what if one party to the transaction was in a tragic accident over the weekend?
Yeah.
Right? The deal's dead. It's done. It's over. Now, I understand that if they've been in a tragic accident, they probably don't want the house anyway. I get that too. But, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 days. And the seller could just get really mad and go, fine, I'll sell it to somebody else and I'll just keep your earnest money.
More
But you
importantly,
can't keep my earnest money because this contract, no, they can't.
we're in an increasing market where the price is actually going up on a regular basis, and people are writing crazy backup offers. And so by delaying that closing and the only out the seller has is if the buyer blows the close date. And on your scenario, they blew the close date.
Yep.
And so that gives the seller the opportunity to not sell and get more money, and that's going to probably end in some type of mediation that Vonda is not going to be very happy about.
Yeah, I mean,
I know I wouldn't be.
so please don't hold
don't
up
do
the
it.
close. If you're ever considering holding up the close of escrow, talk to your broker first.
Absolutely.
Please.
Absolutely.
If the other side offers to hold it up, go talk to your broker immediately, because we need to help people understand that closing up escrow rarely is a good idea.
There's one more piece that we should add to this, and that's about agents' concessions when there's problems, right? And I've seen this a number of times in the last couple of weeks where agents just decide their commission doesn't mean anything, they're just going to chuck it into the deal to make it happen. And so one of the lessons I've learned in life is there's a lot of people in a real estate transaction that are being paid more than me. And so make sure that everyone who's vested in that transaction is sharing in its liability. And so, don't always let your money be the only money fixing problems, and don't offer it right away either.
So if I were a buyer's agent and I know I have some repairs that need to be done, what would be a best practice to ensure those repairs are done and I can meet my walkthrough timely? What would you say? Because you can't really
Pay
rely-
attention to the transaction.
Yeah.
Oh, not just wait for the closing expedition.
Don't get all hot-headed.
In the particular case I dealt with, there were 35-ish items on the repair request.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just a couple things, like
Yeah.
it's a list, right? If I'm a buyer's agent and I've got 35 things on my repair request, I'm going into the house a week before closing to see what's happened. Now, I can't go in and go, yeah, it's all good. That's on the buyer and or the inspector.
Yep.
But at least I'm going in to see if the repairs have been happening. And if they haven't, it's my job now to reach out to the listing agent and say, we're 7 days away from closing, and it appears to me there are no repairs that have been done. What are we going to do about this?
I think your whole point is communication is extremely important after that point, because all that anyone needs, and this is what's happening in the deal I'm in, is the other agent is extremely poor at communication. They won't tell us what's going on. They won't communicate of what they want. I mean, just vague non-responses. And so it's what you have in writing to protect yourself. And when you complete a repair, you get proof of work, right? You get a receipt or you get a photo. Mark just did some repairs. He did an amazing job. He sent me 10 photos of the repairs once they were done, and I took those and gave them to the buyer's agent and said, it's done. I mean, what more proof can
Here
you
you
ask
go.
for?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
done.
So, all right, well, let's move on to another one we have. This one came up, and you actually addressed it on Facebook, and it's something that many people have forgotten about, and it's additional deposit versus EMD. And remember back in the short sale days when we'd have investors buy short sales, and they didn't want to tie up $5,000 for 12 months.
Right.
They would want to tie up, maybe $500,
$500, sure.
and then increase their earnest money deposit. But there's a way to do that makes sense for certain deals, especially in luxury. Talk about that for a minute. What they are.
Yeah, so page 1 of the RPA, line 20, section B talks about an additional deposit, right? And so what is an additional deposit? How do you use it? There are several ways you can use it. It's in luxury is where it's most commonly used. And we did use it a lot of the short sale days, but in luxury, they want a 50, 60, 80, $100,000 EMD deposit. And the buyer says, you know what, I'm willing to put in 40 until I do my inspection.
Yep.
Once my inspection's over and I've done the inspection, I know the property condition, I'm moving forward, I'll put in the extra 60 grand.
Yep.
So at that point, you can put in on section B, $60,000, and this is the date that it goes in, the day after the due diligence period is over. There is a place where you can check whether it's considered earnest money deposit or whether it's not considered earnest money deposit. And that's kind of crucial because let's say that we're 31 days down the road and we held up the close of escrow because the repair on the refrigerator wasn't done yet, and the seller gets mad and doesn't close, that extra $60,000, if is not considered earnest money, automatically gets returned to the buyer.
Because it's the part of their deposit,
Yeah,
down payment.
there's no longer, yeah, because it wouldn't be applied to the deal, but it's not considered earnest money.
Yeah.
Only the 40,000 would be what the buyer and the seller would have to agree on releasing. Now, if you're writing an offer and you're trying to make it strong, and you're trying to make it look like you're putting in $100,000 EMD, and you check is not considered EMD, just know that some agents are gonna catch that. But it's a pretty good way to put in extra money to make your offer look very strong, that after the due diligence is over and you got an 800 plus credit score buyer and there's no way they're not getting a loan, and it's a great way to get people to look at your offer a lot harder.
If you've never done it before, don't test on the public. Make sure you communicate with a broker, because I always tell people when money leaves their bank account and goes to somebody else's bank account, I can't guarantee anything.
Yep.
But I have been in transactions, especially into a luxury transaction, where the seller just didn't think the buyer had the feasibility to close on it just because of the way they presented their financials. And so when you say, yeah, I'm gonna give you 50 grand like you said, and I'm gonna give you $200,000 down payments along the process, it makes that seller feel at ease that a lot of things are better with that client. But definitely make sure that you're having a conversation with the client on what that means and what it's going to look like. And it's just a process, and that's why the contract's written that way. And I've also had agents check EMD by mistake and say, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I had a guy write an offer for like a $300,000 house, and he put earnest money, and then he put $100,000 and he checked EMD, which it was supposed to be down payment, but he didn't know how to write the contract. And so that was not a good thing for him to have done, but definitely make sure
He
that you're
forgot to
cautious.
put that in the G section.
Yeah. And I think the whole thing is, the golden rule, it says in our preamble, is being a realtor is treat others how you'd want to be treated, and I definitely would want to be treated like that.
Yeah.
So.
And also,
How do you make that call? Hey, by the way, today you've got to deposit $100,000 into your escrow. That's a tough call.
Yeah.
and the other thing is, agents have to stop interjecting themselves in the decision-making process. And a lot of the stuff we've been talking about is an agent deciding that this is not okay, and them going forward on behalf of their clients, when they need to go back to their client and say, this is what's happening, what do you want to do?
Yep.
Because that's when you get in trouble, is when you overstep and act on behalf of a client when you don't have their approval to.
Well, it's even when you pass on information to the other side of the deal that didn't come from your client, it came from you.
Yes. Don't do that.
That's, I mean, that gets you in so much trouble, because at some point you got to go back to your client and tell them what you said. And I mean, I don't know, what if your client doesn't agree with you? What if your client just doesn't, just be careful.
So-
Get your ego out of the transaction.
So Vandana put in the comments, make sure the escrow company doesn't treat it as EMD. And it comes back to a point that you're provided with the escrow instructions. And every title company can have different escrow instructions and policies. And there is a title company in town that actually will not release earnest money back to the signed party, which both agree on. They'll release it back to the buyer, and it says so in their escrow instructions, but no one ever reads those, right? And so what happens is agents say, oh yeah, you'll get that back as long as you cancel correctly. And sometimes in the instructions, they may differ. And so they have their instructions from the contract, and then they have their company policies. So it is your job to kind of peruse those and make sure that they make sense before you shoot your mouth off to your client.
Again, paying attention to the transaction.
We just had this happen in my office where a transaction was canceled, and neither party agreed to the earnest money, so neither addendum was assigned, and so our agent assumed that they would not cancel the escrow, but because both parties agreed to cancel escrow but didn't agree on EMD, they canceled the escrow. And they thought they had the leverage of holding the property hostage to get the EMD back, and they just didn't, because they didn't know how that escrow company would handle it, so, yeah.
All right, well, we got a couple other topics. One of them came up on our Agents of Signature Facebook page, and it was talking about Zillow, and it was talking about my listings. The properties that I represented didn't show up under their name on Zillow. And one of the things that people don't know, and I want to make sure that they do here, is that you need to go in after a property closes and claim your sale. Because there are agents out there trolling Zillow to claim other people's sales to use for their marketing. And I've actually found that out myself when I found out that a deal that I was the listing agent in, someone else had taken it, put it under their name. And so all you simply had to do was create your account, was to go in and put your information in so that they know about you forever, and go on and claim the listings that you sold by putting in their information and claiming it as the buyer's agent or the listing agent so that it's locked under your name. And then when someone else tries to claim it, it actually sends you an email that says, can you confirm that this or this wasn't your sale? And so please make sure you've done that. I actually went into the MLS and printed out a list of every deal I've ever done, and I went back on Zillow.
It's a pretty short.
I caught a fish this big. But I mean, it is a cool thing to do because it does give you that ranking of you've had those previous transactions. So make sure you do that.
And it's an issue. I mean,
Yeah, literally every time I've gone to Zillow to claim, every single time I've gone to do it, I'm like you, I'll do 5 or 10 or 15 at the same time. There's always 2 or 3 people that have claimed a transaction that was mine.
Yeah.
Every time.
You said I could. All right, so let's talk about another one. We just recently, through our referral network, were able to place a referral to Barcelona, Spain. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that process, and definitely Janet and Tom, with your realtor background with the board leadership, a lot of people don't know that there are realtors across the world and that will guarantee an agent's referral if placed with them. And we've met them at association events and meetings, and so these are people that, you know, in their countries, they don't necessarily have licenses, but they're called sales reps or representatives of a builder or developer in that country. And once they add the realtor to their title, they've agreed to abide by our realtor code of ethics and our standards.
Yep.
And so that means that we can actually guarantee you getting that referral or enforce it through the National Association of Realtors.
It's important.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you send out a thing to Barcelona, Spain.
You may never get it back.
You're spitting into the wind and hoping that, you know, some kind of dollar comes back.
Yep. And I think SIPS is one of the things that we've talked about a lot, and that's our Certified International Property Specialist.
Yeah.
And it's a designation at NAR, but these are agents that actually specialize in international property sales.
Yep.
And so we've used them for referrals.
Yeah, but it's hard to get away.
I know it is.
That's
Chris and I
know. So really and truly, when we go to these, prior to COVID, these nationwide events like Legislative Week in Washington DC or the NAR convention, there is a, I can't even think of it. Good word. Plethora of international agents who have come from all over the world, and they have their own events. Well, the members of our Global Business Committee right here in Las Vegas are very active in going to these nationwide events with NAR, and they're very active in participating in the events that these international people from all over the world who sell real estate have come together to just network, and there's always something going on. The other thing you need to know too is that our global business community goes on, every year they go somewhere. This year they went on a trade mission to Dubai. They've been to Hong Kong. They've been to New Zealand. They've been to Dubai. So many times I'm beginning to wonder what's going on over there. But if we don't have somebody, we know the people on the Global Business Committee that we can call and say, hey, can you give me the name of an agent in Barcelona? Can you give me the name of an agent in New Zealand? Because there's money to be made.
Here's what's funny though. When we went to place the referral, we realized that we don't speak Spanish or Portuguese, And Monica was able to actually take an email, put it through Google Translate, and send it both in English and in multiple languages. And we were sending these emails off, and it does take 3 or 4 days to get someone to respond, because usually when we're sending it, it's midnight there or 1 in the morning, as we found out. And so give us a little bit of extra time to find that person, but we figured out a way to make it happen. So utilize those referrals. So you brought up another topic, and this one is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seller tries to exit the listing contract because another agent told him that their property was listed too low, and so they want to withdraw so they can go list with the other agent. So did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, why does
That's
your
shady, yeah.
why does your mother have your home listed so low? I'm your best friend.
Yeah.
And she could sell it for way more than that in today's market, and so you should have me sell it because I'm your friend and I'll sell it for more money.
So Vonda's not typing fast enough, but we're going to talk about intrusion of agency.
So that's the first thing I was gonna say. That's a total violation of the code of ethics. You're violating the agency relationship that the listing agent has with the seller, and you could be in big trouble for that. That's number one.
Yep.
Right off the bat. But,
But I know, I've told him, and I just can't talk him out of it. He just wants more money, but it won't appraise. I don't want to list it for more money because I want to sell it. And his friend just says he can get him another 20 grand. What do I do?
Well, Janet says turn him in.
I turn.
Okay, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that for
I
sure.
said,
That's a given.
If you can get me another 20 grand, bring me a buyer. We'll talk.
Okay,
Tom is percolating.
Well,
the fire's
Percolating.
burning.
That's a good word for him, too.
Percolating.
It's almost done. I think the whole piece of this is that someone's promising your client something without anything to back it up, right? And so a lot of times it requires, you're doing this over the phone. And sometimes you do have to be face-to-face or in the same 6 feet apart, explaining something to somebody that, listen, here's the information that shows what your property's worth. Here's the marketing plan that I put together on what we're going to get you, and here's the process that's unfolded of where we're at. And so that's what we know to be facts. Where is this agent getting this information, and why do you believe it to be true? Usually it's just poking holes in the BS that people tell themselves.
He's my friend. He's my friend.
Well, why didn't you list it with him to begin with?
20 grand. Because you're my mother.
Oh, okay. Well, now that we've established that,
I've been trying to figure out how to say this, but there's no other way.
There's no politically
There's no politically correct way of saying it. So look, I'd call bullshit on the other agent, call him into the house and say, explain to us both how you're gonna get $20,000 more when these are the comps.
and then video it and turn him in.
Well, we're just gonna, Tom, you said it on camera. We're on fire. The market's on fire.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you wanna sell it 2 years from now,
For
we
every
get
single
20 grand
property,
more.
we can get 20 grand more. Come on. Seriously, I mean, this is going on out
Yeah,
there
yeah.
every single day.
it's-
If you have a listing, somebody's telling one of your sellers this exact same thing I'm telling you right now.
And why
Unless
does,
you're traditionally taking
why does the
over
seller
places.
believe it? Because probably your communication with your client has not been the best either.
They just want the money.
Well, they do, but I've noticed this happens more often when you list a property and then you haven't talked to somebody for 30 days. Everyone else is talking to them,
That's a
and you're not updating them on a regular basis of the action
How
of
often
activity.
should we update them?
I try to update my clients every week. I do it
Once a
every
week.
Friday.
Yeah, every Wednesday for us, every Wednesday.
I take the printout from the MLS box, or the lock box as we call it, the central lock box, and I show what's happening with that. I take the Zillow printout, where Zillow will actually rank your property in the subdivision by how attractive it is to other homes. I take the showing instructions that we've had, I take their listing sheet, I take all the things that have happened in the neighborhood, and I put it into an email and provide it to them.
Yeah.
These are all of the things that we've done to sell your home. And the nice part about it is they'll usually ask for adjustments before I have to ask for them.
So here's how I've handled this, and I think that, I think if you had a pen and a paper, you'd want to write this down, because
I got one.
it works most of the time. What I tell my client is, I hear you, I understand that you're trying to make more money, and here's what I need in order to give you a complete withdrawal of your property. I need something in writing from the other agent that says that that they'll pay the difference between what they're promising you they're gonna get and what it actually sells for, up to the amount of their commission. So what I'm saying is, if the other agent can really get you another 20 grand, then I want you to get the 20 grand. But if he can't get you the extra 20,000, I want him to pay the difference. And if he'll put that in writing and you'll get that to me I'm happy to do a withdrawal, and I'm happy to let you have that other agent take it, because I'm in this to make sure you make as much money. That's one of our jobs as an agent, right? Make the most money in the least amount of time with the least amount of hassle, right? So I want to help you do that, but I also don't just want someone lying to you about hyping up a price just so that you'll switch over to them, and then you end up making less money because that guy's not strong enough to negotiate a deal I can negotiate. So put it in writing. I promise, I guarantee, whatever, and it says that I'll pay the difference between what I promised to get for the house and what I actually get out of my commission, up to the amount of my commission.
And then file an ethics charge with them.
Yeah.
Right after they take the.
By the way, you're never gonna get that, but it makes the seller think.
Yes.
Long and hard about what is he going to do if he doesn't get that higher price, right? Then what happens?
And let me add to that is, there's been so much talk over the last few years about professionalism in the real estate industry, and we need to have more education. We need to have this. We need to have that. No, we just need to have the folks that know the other agents that are out there that are screwing over the public to file a complaint. That'll take care of it.
Yeah.
If we're not policing our own, as we're supposed to be doing, then you're going to get the kind of agents that we have. I'll get off my...
It's a good point. So this goes into the next one, and we've seen it a lot. The co-op agent is a bully, and they've threatened to call my broker.
Let them call.
Right?
So this just bugs me to death, man. I mean, I'm gonna call your broker. Okay, here's his phone number. Here's his name, here's his ad. So literally, every time an agent threatens you that he's gonna call your broker, or she's gonna call your broker, just know that they're trying to get you to do something that they want done.
Yeah.
They're trying to bully you into doing something that's probably not best for your client. And so I'm not trying to make your guys' phones ring, okay?
Oh, that's fine.
But here's
Look,
what
it's
I'm
ringing
telling you.
right now.
In my phone, my entire career, I've had my broker's contact information. And so anytime I've been on a phone call or in an email or in a situation where the other agent offers to call my broker, I provide the information. And I would say 90% of the time I've done that, they've never said that to me again. So I'm having this happen right now where an agent may have done something that the client really didn't want to do because the agent kept pushing them. I'm going to call your broker. I don't want to call your broker. Don't make me call your broker. I'm going to call you. Look, if they start going down that pathway with you, provide the information because they'll zip it right up. They'll stop saying that. They're trying to use fear against you to get you to do something that they know you don't want to do or your client doesn't want to do. Well, if they call and you've made a mistake, we'll correct it. No big deal. But at the same time, they're not going to call, right?
But when they do call,
bully.
they want to know what happens. So let me tell you what happens with Brandon and I've heard it from all three of you. The first thing we ask for is, what's the issue? And before we agree or say anything, we let them know we're going to talk to our agent and find out their side of the story because there's always multiple sides to the story. And so a lot of times they're surprised. Well, what do you mean you're going to call your agent? Well, the agent works with me and I'm their broker, like you now know, and I'm going to find out why there's an issue and then I'll get back to you. And that's what most of us do before we say anything because we need to know what's going on and what your point of view is.
As a broker, we can't make any decisions or have any conversation that's valuable until we've talked to both sides. It doesn't even make sense that we would make a decision without talking to both sides. So, look, if they're threatening your broker, send them the information.
That's right. Give them Tom's number and tell him I said good luck.
Don't be afraid.
So another one that came up, and this is one of the last two that we had, and it's when markets are hot like this and sellers feel that they're taking their home off the market and going under contract, there's a lot of people that want to delay the process of putting it in under contract, show or no show. And so this was another question that went on our Facebook page, and I just want to clarify a few items of that. The MLS policy says that once you receive an offer, you're going to put your property under contract. And a lot of people have a misnomer about what under contract means. Under contract does not mean the home is off the market, cannot be shown. It means that it has a contingency, right? And so it has an item like a home inspection, an appraisal, closing. It could be a number of issues, but there's still a possibility to write an offer in a hot market on that property and, to move through that process. But the reason why we have under contract show and no show is that you're now telling the other realtors that, yeah, continue to show my listing.
I have another offer.
Yeah, or don't show my listing because we have a great offer that's not going to have any issues and we're going to be moving forward to closing. But that's why we have those
Those are always the ones
statuses.
that have the issues. though,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so we've had the comment a few times, well, my client wants to leave the property in ER until the earnest money shows up. Well, the problem is, let's say your contract says earnest money will not be deposited for 5 days, and I'm just throwing that out there. Technically, if I'm the buyer's agent and I find out you as a listing agent won't do it, all I have to do is call the MLS and report you. They're going to fine you, right? Because you're under contract.
Is it an automatic fine?
It's $250 automatic fine if they prove that you had knowledge that you were under contract and you knew it and you're there,
Exactly.
and it's automatic. And then if you don't do it, it goes up to what?
500.
500?
No, and
Then it goes to 1,000.
then do it again.
And that really makes a great relationship between you and the other agent once that happens. So just understand that that's part of the process, and the seller agreed to abide by that in the listing agreement. It's right there in the agreement that they're going to agree to your MLS rules and regs that you have to abide by as well.
So let me ask, what's the downside if I represent the buy side? What's the downside if they don't put it into under contract?
The downside if they don't put it under contract.
So I'm under contract. I've got a contract between buyer and seller.
Yep.
And the listing agent, it's Friday afternoon, and Monday happens to be Martin Luther King Day. And so they go out of town to the dunes, and they have no cell service, and it's not in under contract, it's just in ER status.
Yep.
And they reply back and say, well, wait till the EMD comes in on Tuesday. What's the downside if I represent the buy side of the transaction if they don't put it into under contract sold?
A potentially better offer.
I'm under contract.
But he's already.
A potentially better
Well,
offer may come
but
on.
I write a better offer, and now I write it cash for $10,000 more, and that seller now finds out about it because it was available, right? You could cause that scenario, but on what you said, I'm thinking about a seller who now thinks their home is under contract and leaves town because they don't need to show it. And there's all these people wanting to show this listing, and now this listing agent's in a bad position because the seller won't grant access because they had the only key and they left town. And so now all these agents are upset that they can't show this property that's still available, right? And the other side of it is they call you up and you say, well, actually, we have an accepted offer. And so now all of those agents start reporting you to the MLS that your property is actually sold as well.
It's just bad business.
It's just not.
Is that the answer you're looking for?
No, I just want everyone to understand that if you're under contract,
You're under contract.
you're under contract. And
That's the order.
if for some reason they didn't flip it in to under contract, you shouldn't spend your entire weekend walking around the house yelling and screaming because they didn't do it.
I already have an offer on this one, get away.
So, the scenario of the $10,000 cash offer that comes in, I don't like that happening because now every time I go ask for repairs, or the next time I go, there's some type of negotiation
Yeah.
between both sides, it puts my buyer in a bad spot because the seller's mentality then is, well, I've got a much better offer anyway, so I hope you cancel.
And
Yeah.
and Vonna had just answered everybody's question.
Oh, sorry.
You got 2 business days to put it into under contract. So something on Friday can actually be ER over the weekend and not be done until Tuesday.
But why would you want it to? I mean, I can't see a value in it of having under contract show is the same thing to me as ER if I'm aggressive with my buyer, right? If I want to take my buyer out and get him a house, I think a lot of agents have just conditioned themselves that doesn't matter anymore. But yet my buyer is extremely qualified and they want that model, then aren't I doing a bad service to that buyer by not actually saying that property's there and putting them into that situation? I just don't see the value in it. But anyway, last one we have on here, and Janet, you brought this up, and I think it's a good one that we're seeing now, especially with the market the way it is. Property
On fire.
excluded
On fire, baby.
and included.
Okay, so I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, and then I started tracking it when I was getting listing agreements to DocuSign as a broker. And on the first page of the ER agreement, and paragraph 2, property off, is that 2? I don't have my glasses on.
Paragraph 3.
Thank you. Paragraph 3, property offered for sale, and it says
Her
the
glasses are
following
included.
items of personal property are included. It's blank. And then on B, under that, it says the following items of personal property are excluded. It's blank. You need to fill this in. It's part of your contract. Remember, no blanks on your contract. This is your contract with your seller. And so if they're going to take the water softener that's currently hooked up because it's leased, you need to write in there, the water softener is excluded from the sale. Whatever it is, put it in. I remember it was probably my third deal ever in real estate. I sold this beautiful home on a half-acre lot that had palm trees that rivaled the mirage. I mean, gorgeous.
They rival themselves right over to another property.
So what we didn't know was that the seller never disclosed he also had a second. He never disclosed he was about to be foreclosed on, and we wrote the offer. We came back to do the walkthrough. The only time we'd been back to the property, also lesson learned. And every one of those palm trees was gone. He had sold them. But in the contract, the listing agent also happened to be in my office. They did not write palm trees excluded. So you may want to write all landscaping, bushes, trees, shrubs, etc. are included in here too.
That's going to put a damper in our marketing plan. I'm just going to say right now.
All dust bunnies in every corner are included in the sale of this property.
So let me tell you.
It's a good point, though.
So I was discussing this earlier before we started this meeting, and Brandon, your corporate broker / owner, said, well, are you rejecting the listing contracts? And I said, no, I'm signing them because I've talked about it, and it's also taught when we teach the listing contract. And he said, are you calling them? And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to be calling a lot of people. So we're not at the point where you're going to be rejected, but I'm telling you, it may come to that. And if I call you 2 or 3 times, I'm going to start rejecting them.
There's another line for solar panels, solar panels and alarm down below, because
And, you know, the listing agreement's made for you to have the conversation with your clients before you get it. By 4, I think I just hit you.
Wow, you got
We knew it could happen.
So exciting.
But I think Janet's point goes to also where the RPA has pre-written in items that are included in the RPA that are standardized. They're written in,
Yeah.
you know, and if you don't have it in the listing agreement that the water softener that's hard written into the RPA is excluded, then you don't have instruction from your seller to exclude it. You need to know that going into it, meaning you need to have that conversation with them about it.
Good, thank you for filling in.
Just real quick on.
Anything to help you out, Tom?
Here,
Just real quick on listing agreements also, or any agreement that you send to a broker. It should be fully executed by all parties prior to getting to your broker. So if you're gonna do a buyer-broker agreement and you got someone who's writing an offer, please get the offer signed, get the buyer-broker agreement signed, get all that stuff signed by your client before you send it to your broker for signatures. We shouldn't see it. I mean, it's the same with withdrawal. I got a withdrawal the other day. I was the first one to sign it.
Yep.
I'm not going to sign that. I'm going to reject that every time. So please make sure it's fully executed by all parties, including yourself, before you send it to your broker for signature.
So Audrey just asked a great question, and it comes up a lot. How long should a listing agent wait to put a property back in available status if the title company has not received the EMD? Believe it or not, my first job in a real estate company was calling on EMDs. That's what they paid me. They paid me to do it, right? $14 an hour.
with mom page.
No. Companies who work I would call the title company, and I would verify that the EMD was deposited, who the escrow officer was, and what the escrow number was, because you needed those then. And that's all I would do all day long. And there were a lot of escrows, okay? And so the point is that if you know as the listing agent, because you're not following up or you are following up, that earnest money hasn't been deposited contractually on its timeline, it's your responsibility to bring that to your buyer's attention, and it's your seller's attention, and it's your seller's decision on what they'd like to do about that. But the whole point is, if you don't follow up and you don't do your part, I've seen deals go all the way to close of escrow and the agent not know there's earnest money in. And it was a cash transaction and it didn't close, and the buyer was supposedly losing $5,000 in earnest money that was never deposited. And so that seller was really pissed. Seen it happen?
Yeah.
All right, well.
Buyer's consult's gonna be Friday at 11 o'clock, Southwest office, by the way.
Yes, it'll be in the Southwest office. Todd will be here in person. For COVID restrictions, if you are gonna show up in person, please let the office manager know.
Yeah, so if you're going to come Friday, RSVP with Kim here at the Southwest office. It's at 11 o'clock.
Yep.
At this point, there is no lunch, so make sure you eat lunch before you come.
And if you're showing up for Tom's today, just send an email to let us know you're on your way.
Yep.
And if you're coming to Janet's at Summerlin, let Janet or Bobby
Let Bobby know.
that you're on your way, and we appreciate you. And another great sales meeting here at Signature, and we appreciate your questions, your input, your information, and make it a great week, and I hope they call you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Bye.